before somebody actually gets into sobriety or recovery, whatever that may look like, whether that's abstinent based or not, it's extremely hard to predict what your life will look like. If you think about what you have filled your time with, what you have used to cope with bad days or have celebrated with on the good days, or just done because you're bored, you realize it's just consumed about every aspect of your life concerning utilizing drugs, utilizing alcohol, or whatever it may be. So whenever you get into the space where your drug addiction, your alcoholism is starting to become a problem, maybe there's a time to change it at some point, whether that's now, in a week, in a month, or at some point in the future. You start trying to picture what that's going to look like. And it's extremely difficult to do so because you have no idea. Drugs and alcohol have played a very powerful role in a lot of people who struggle with drug addiction and alcoholism in their lives. And so, being that it consumed almost every aspect of our lives, we start thinking, if we take that out, now what do we do? What do we fill this time with? Something that I've heard a couple times from people who are sober, newly sober, questioning whether sobriety is for them or not, but they've never tried, is, I'm just going to stay busy, which is a fair thought. What do they say? Idle time or boredom is the devil's playground. That's something that I've heard growing up. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just go skate because I'm big into skateboarding. Maybe I'll just go skate or do whatever it may be. Go to the gym. I wasn't going to the gym before I got sober, but before I got sober and stayed sober, I thought skateboarding would be a good distraction, to say the least. But what happens is I'd go skate and I'd be done with skating, and now I'm back to my same thought process. And if you take a look at drug addiction and alcoholism, the whole premise of the disease is an ailment with your thought process. We can't think properly. So here we are thinking, and rightfully so, because we have no idea, that if we stay busy, that will solve my problem. Okay, I had a guy who, I forget where I met him, and I don't think I've talked to him ever again. It was more so just a conversation that we had at a mutual place, and it was a very quick conversation. And this guy told me, oh, you know what? He might have been in a residential treatment center that I was visiting. And he said, yeah, I plan to just go to the gym. Okay, fair thought. Replacing an unhealthy habit with a healthy habit. The issue is it doesn't solve the problem. So what are you going to do when the gym's closed? You're going to run outside? Okay. What if it's raining? What if it's too cold? What are you going to do then? Staying busy in itself, especially as a means to stay sober, sounds exhausting. It doesn't sound like, if I have to constantly be distracted, constantly have my time filled with activities, it sounds exhausting. It doesn't sound like something that I would want to maintain. Now, if you compare staying busy with healthy habits or whatever, compare that to active drug addiction, active alcoholism, okay, maybe if I'm staying busy, I'm not hurting people, robbing people, hurting myself, causing my family to worry, stabbing people in the back, whatever it may be. Okay, but how long does that last? When you get into recovery, you start realizing, and this is for anyone who's attempted to be sober, just in general, whether that lasted a day, a month, a year, 10 years, whatever it may be, you start realizing that just because I took the drugs out of my system, I still have a problem. Because if the answer was take the drugs or the alcohol out of my system, then for me personally, when I went to jail the very first time for reasons that my drug addiction, had caused me to do, then I would have been done. I wouldn't have returned back to drugs. What did I do? I got out of jail. I got high. Simple as that. Personally, I've been in treatment multiple times. Okay, well, if I've removed the drugs or the alcohol or both from my system, then I should never have to go back to treatment. I should never get high again. If the drugs are my problem, the drugs are not my problem. There is a quality of life that I have after so long without using drugs or alcohol that is so overwhelming. I go back to what I use to solve my problem. Now, the issue is it doesn't solve anything. If it did, well, there probably wouldn't be such a problem. It would actually be a solution. But for anyone that is afflicted with drug addiction or alcoholism, I'm not saying if you smoke weed, that's an issue. Right? If you're watching this or listening to this and you just casually smoke weed, your life's great. Okay, I'm not talking to you. And I support that if that's what you do. But if you have a problem that happens in the sense of you can't control the amount of drugs that you take when you do them, not consistently, or you can't completely stay away from drugs or alcohol, and the consequences of using drugs or alcohol is severe, whatever that may be, health, physical, maybe problems with your family, whatever it may be, that's who I'm talking to, okay? So when we get into this idea that maybe it's time to get sober, the very first step is stop using whatever it is. The harder and longer journey is going to be staying stopped. So what's the solution to that? Okay, well, the first thing to think about is what exactly does my life look like on a day-to-day basis, on an hour-to-hour basis, when I don't have drugs or alcohol in my system? Do I have a support system? Can I talk to a mentor? Can I talk to a friend who maybe has experience with staying away from drugs and alcohol and still lives a life maybe that I want, even partially? Can I talk to someone that knows what they're talking about, that may actually give me some information or some direction that'll be effective to changing the quality of my life? Because if the quality of my life is overwhelming and I'm going to revert back to drugs and alcohol, something to consider there is I have no idea when I'm going to revert back to drugs or alcohol. We think we can predict it. We think it's going to be when this event happens. That's not the case. When we're dealing with drugs, drug addiction, and alcoholism, and we ask somebody, let's say they just relapsed. They say, I don't want to do that again. I'm sorry. I'll do better. I can guarantee you they mean it. The issue with drug addiction and alcoholism and that disease is that it just completely changes the individual's mind. It is a mental disease. Yes, you can be physically dependent on heroin. Okay, whatever. But if I'm removed from heroin for 3 months, why do I go back? It's not because of a physical addiction anymore. It's because of the overwhelming mindset or pressure that I have with the quality of my life. So the real work begins after you removed drugs and alcohol from your system. So what does that look like? Is it going to the gym? Is it eating better? Is it meditation? Is it picking up healthier habits? Is it finding new hobbies? Is it making new friends? Is it moving to a different city, different part of town, to a different state? What is it? It has to be effective, but it can't be staying busy because it's exhausting and it doesn't solve the problem that lives up here. Plus, who wants to live a distracted life? I want to be able to go anywhere I want or not go anywhere I want and be completely okay. That's the goal. Because if I can do that, I know I can go anywhere. And I don't want any limitations. I want to know that if I'm uncomfortable, let's say I'm overwhelmed, emotionally, mentally, whatever it may be, I want to know that I have a process that I can take, some intervention that I can take to not have to go buy or move anywhere and find some contentment. You know, if I'm content, I'm content. I don't need X, Y, or Z. I don't need to go to the gym to be okay. I don't need to go buy things to be okay. You know, materialistic stuff. I don't need to go buy drugs and use those to be okay. I don't need to have sex to be okay. I don't need X, Y, or Z to happen or not to happen to be okay. And that's the goal. Whenever I want to stay busy, I'm still planning out my life just like I was with drugs and alcohol. Okay, I'm going to buy drugs at this time, at this place from this person. I'm going to use it. Okay, I'm going to go to the gym at this time, at this place because, you know, I need to and I don't feel comfortable. Am I saying the gym is an unhealthy habit? Absolutely not. But what's my intention behind it? Is my intention to solve a problem that the gym can't solve? I get having an outlet. I don't agree with staying busy. I don't think there's peace in distraction. I think there's peace in confrontation, walking through that, and ending up on the other side and realizing you're totally fine. That's what I believe.